Is this working? Thank you very much. Thank you. Try and concentrate. Okay, there you go. I just need to get you all.
It's okay. Thank you for everyone for coming today. Really appreciate your time and looking forward to a very important panel we have. My name is Colin Reese. I work with Oil Change International. We are a member of the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice, as well as the Climate Action Network International and other coalitions. And we're here today at COP29 to start to think about COP30, to think about the decisions that have already been taken here at COP29 and the ones to come, and how they will impact the upcoming negotiations for next year and for years to come. So I want to turn it over to our panel of fantastic Latin American speakers and advocates who are mostly fellow members of the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice to hear their thoughts. We have an excellent panel, but we will start with Paloma Joffre from Earth in Brackets.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you, everyone. Hello. Well, as Colin said, I am Paloma. I'm from Earth in Brackets. I'm part also of the Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice. Today, we'll be having some wonderful panelists talking to us. They're all from Latin America. They're leaders that will give us an overview about what happened during this first week at COP, and also raise demands for the second week, as well as talking about COP30 in Belem. So I have the pleasure to introduce to my colleagues from the panel. We have Adrián Martínez from la Ruta del Clima. He's from Costa Rica. Ivonne Yáñez, de Acción Ecológica, Ecuador. Andrea Echeverry, de la Global Forest Coalition en Colombia. Maurín Santos, de FACE, en Brasil. Y Jesús Vázquez Negrón, de la Vía Campesina, en Puerto Rico. So our panelists will be focusing on the damage of the approval of the Article 6.4 in the first, in the UNFCCC process, and what are the consequences that this can have in our territories. Also, the low expectations regarding the political will to provide funds, especially for loss and damage, but also the reduction of emissions in the agricultural sector. So without further delay, I'll pass the word to Adrián from la Ruta del Clima.
So thank you everybody for coming. I think we're in a very important moment in terms of loss and damage and finance. And while many are focused on the loss and damage fund, the discussions here on the NCQG are extremely relevant, because as of right now, we really don't have any money to task the issue of loss, to deal with the issue of loss and damage. And it is an extremely important battle that we have to do here for loss and damage to remain as one of the pillars of the NCQG. This is something that is not ensured, that we need the G77 and all the developing countries to push forward, to acknowledge that this is something that we need. We need commitments from developed countries to provide public funding for loss and damage, to be in the NCQG, and not only depend on mobilizing private funds or fundraising or philanthropies. We need a real commitment and a recognition that it's their obligations to deal with the consequences of not acting in time. When we talk about loss and damage, it's the consequences of not fulfilling the objective of the convention, of fulfilling the Paris Agreement goals. And this is something that they're obliged to by international law to respond to. It is not an issue of being donors, of being charity institutions. It's about dealing with what they did not pay, with the resources that they did not give, with the actions that they did not take during the last 32 years since the creation of the convention. And this is something that is not being put on the table. It is something that developed countries are trying to avoid constantly, and it's something that we have to fight against, because this is what will provide the resources to frontline communities, with what will enable the protection of human rights and what will restore human dignity to hundreds of thousands of people across the world in frontline communities that are being affected by transboundary environmental harm caused by climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for the reflection. And now we are going to hear Yvonne Yáñez from Acción Ecológica Ecuador. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma. I would like to say three ideas in these 3 minutes that I have. First of all, I think that we know that all the decisions that have been taken last week are very bad for peoples and the climate. And I am convinced that after this week, things will be worse. And so I came here without any expectation that it will be a good result of this COP, but I live always convinced that every COP is worse and worse. And the second idea that I wanted to say is that when the organizations we are asking to polluters pay, is more than a slogan. It's more than a slogan. And I would like to add one word to this idea of polluters pay. When we say polluters pay, should be polluters pay a fine, not to pay a fee. I don't know if you understand the difference. To pay a fine and to pay a fee. A fee is I will pay and I will continue polluting. And this is exactly what is happening in this COP. They say, the negotiators, that if they put a lot of money, they will be paying a fee in order to continue polluting, thanks of carbon offsets and thanks of many other things. What we are asking is to pay a fine. This is what we need to push for, to pay a fine of what them have already been doing, which is abusing the space of the atmosphere with their carbon emissions, is devastating the territories where the oil and coal and all the fossil fuels are being taken out, and to recognize the existence of the ecological debt. And the third thing that I want to say is that they are talking about transitioning away of fossil fuels, they are talking about phasing down fossil fuels. No, they have to stop now the expansion of the oil frontier, the gas frontier, the coal minings, etc. And we have to ask them, when are you going to start to do this? Ecuador started last year because we voted to keep fossil fuels on the ground. Now we are demanding our government to implement the mandate of the popular decision. So I think that we are going to see these days very other bad things, including in the Article 6.8, the Just Transition Working Group, etc. So I call you to join us to continue demanding keep fossil fuels on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne, totally. And it's really hard to hear that we come here with no expectations, as Yvonne was saying. We are at week 2 of COP29, but really it feels like we've been here in the same place for the past 30 years. So when are people going to wake up? When are we going to do something about it? Because we know who are the responsibles. We know what we demand. We demand real climate finance. We demand for these rich countries, for the polluters, to be responsible for what they have done and to phase out fossil fuels, to redirect the money that we know that is there. So now I'm going to give the floor to Andrea Echeverri from Global Forest Coalition.
Hi, everyone. I will be talking in these 3 minutes about agriculture, especially because agriculture is deeply involved in every aspect of our lives, the ecological, the cultural, the economic one. But currently we have a globalized food system that's focused around unsustainable ways and increasing livestock and sustainable livestock actually productions that require pastures, that require feeds, and meaning that you're required to log off the forest, to expel indigenous peoples, to expel peasants from their territories, and to harm the soils worldwide. In Spanish, when we say agriculture, it doesn't encompass animal agriculture. And that's not something minor for these negotiations, because our governments don't really give the importance and the relevance that livestock should have, and agriculture, but especially livestock, in the climate discussions and in climate actions. Livestock production or industrial animal agriculture represents up to 16% of the total emissions of GHG and uses up to 15% of the fossil fuels, because from the tillage to the nitrous, the nitrous fertilizers, from the packaging, it's also very reliant on the fossil fuel industry. And our countries in Latin America are barely talking about livestock as a major environmental problem that's also involving land grabbing, that's creating violence, because in some cases it's being financed and fueled by illegal forces that are actually threatening and harming people and environmental and indigenous defenders. And what we have seen here is that the negotiations of the Sharm el-Sheikh Working Group are not either talking about gender or about livestock expansion, and that they're just only focusing on a portal, which will lead to another dimension. We don't know what is that, because that's the major outcome, while people in other rooms were having very heated discussions. But we think that's also happening because there are parallel negotiations going on that are undermining the multilateralism of these UN negotiations, whatever that could look like, because I agree, they go worse and worse each by year. So tomorrow on Food Day, we are expecting to know more about an initiative that's called Harmonia, of which currently we don't really have a lot of information. They will also release a portal. This is something similar of what happened last year with the Emirates Declaration that had corporations, I don't know if any of you are on the audience, like Danone and others that are basically creating the narrative for transforming our food system into most sustainable. But they're doing that also through carbon offsetting, specifically through carbon farming, talking about the carbon intensity of GHG, meaning that each product will be less emitting, but not tackling the roots of a flooded system that doesn't feed people, that's harming the planet, that's harming climate, and the possibilities of producing food in the future. So big agriculture and big livestock are big polluters, are big consumers of oil, and we also need to kick them out of the negotiations as the big polluters that they are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for your words. Totally, this food system is rooted in extractivism, in the commodification of nature, and without taking into account the right of people to food sovereignty. So we need a radical transformation of our food system, and a system that doesn't continue to reproduce the same logics, the same colonialist logics of extraction that caused the problem in the first place. And so despite all the uncertain outcomes of the negotiations here in Baku, especially in relation to false solutions such as carbon markets, we are the organizations, the climate justice organizations, are building our way to Belem for next year, for COP30, where the COP of the people is expected to be putting pressure into the Brazilian presidency and reduce the impact of the climate crisis in our territory. So I'll give the floor to Maureen Santos to talk more about this.
Thank you very much. I'm Maurice Santos. I'm from FASE and Belem Leather Group, and also here to represent our operative group from People Summit. We are already in Brazil since 1 year, almost 1 year and a half, with a lot of social organizations, social movements in this building process to arrive in the People Summit next year in Belem, but also focus on the idea of a process that passed Belem as how to build more strongest movements around the world globally, and at the same time to tackle a lot of challenges that we're facing, not only related to the climate agenda and all this environmental and social environmental crisis that we're living right now, but also related to the extreme right power that's growing around the world, and also it's creating a lot of challenges to achieve an agenda about real solutions. So the the People Summit, we are building this process together with the organizations, but very, very focused in Brazil in the idea to how to support the territories and the land rights. That is one of the best solutions to keep the equilibrium for the climate agenda. But at the same time, bring the real solutions and spread to the world that we already have and is not part of this mainstream agenda that you can see inside the COP negotiations. As my colleagues talk about it already, this space, it's a lot of the negotiations that only put the process and the outcomes related to false solutions. And these false solutions, it's only creating distractions should they put and implement a public policies that can really face our environmental crisis and our climate crisis, and pushing especially the peoples and the poverty and the inequality to deep each more time, and relating to also other kind of challenges that the world is also seeing. We are calling this process for all the organizations that can see this big mainstream process inside of the official space and build a process outside that's very focused in autonomous, popular, and a strong building movement process. We really believe that the People Summit towards COP30 can be a space that you can be strongly build the social movements in a more strengthened way, and at the same time can really support a strong force against the extreme rights and denying agenda against this climate crisis. At the same time, we wish to the organizations and social movements that are here, that's not really part of the process yet, can come to this agenda. And you think about that's happening this in Brazil, it's not only about Brazil, it's about the global south, it's about Latin America, it's about Pan-Amazonia. So we really have to highlight our issues and bring this popular COP, Popular People Summit, to build something that can pass Belem and keep going until the next year, so we can really, really do a big alliance in the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen. And yeah, we know, as Maureen said, we know what the false solutions are, the carbon markets, the carbon credits, carbon offsets and removals, but then what are the real solutions, no? And so that's what the climate justice organizations are gonna be at the People Summit pushing for, you know, real solutions, people-centered, centered on indigenous people's cosmovisions, and to not continue to reproduce the same logic that is destroying our territory. So we will be there mobilizing and building alliances to protect our life, our right to exist and be alive. So thank you, Maureen, and now I will give the floor to Jesus Vázquez from La Vía Campesina.
Saludos a todos. Good afternoon to everybody. So, yeah, my name is Jesus. I'm coming all the way from Boriquén, Puerto Rico, the Caribbean region, with Organización Boricua. And we also have members from La Vía Campesina from Brazil, from the movement of people affected by dams, MABI, and also from the movement of small farmers, MPA, here in COP29. And we come here with our clear objectives. We come here to study. We come here to organize. We come here to analyze the context that we're in. And we come here also to act. While we recognize that all of civil society is not here. There is a lot of people missing, a lot of social movements missing, and for a good reason. They are burning down our house and they are not coming. So we need to make sure that we keep organizing, agitating and mobilizing to save our communities, to keep defending our natural commons, and to have a future, to guarantee a future of our planet. This is our responsibility that we assume, especially coming from generations that have given their life in this struggle. We promote and practice agroecology as a sustainable agri-food system, as a science based on ancestral knowledge and people's knowledge, as a social movement where we keep organizing, and as a way of life where we put into practice values and principles that are based on the natural law. And while we're here, we also maintain our deep solidarity with all of our people that are suffering from genocide. So we say our message of solidarity to Palestine, to stop the genocide, to free Palestine, and to achieve peace, and also in other occupied and colonized countries, such as in my country, in Puerto Rico. And I want to end with saying that 70% of the food in the world is produced by peasants, small-scale farmers, agrarian organizers, farm workers, in approximately 30% of the available arable land. So we need to know that we're hundreds of millions of people that are sustaining life, fulfilling the most sacred responsibility of sustaining life while stewarding and defending the natural commons. And as we say in La Vía Campesina, globalicemos la lucha, globalicemos la esperanza, globalize the struggle, and globalize hope.
Thank you so much, Jesus. I can't agree more. It's important also to say again that we need to defund the genocide and fund climate justice. It's our responsibility, as Jesus said, to build the future and the present, to decolonize our political imagination. Now I'll give the floor to Colin.
Yeah, thank you to all these incredible panelists. We know there are some press in the room and others, so would invite questions for any of the panelists and would request questions from press first if you have them. Raise your hand and we can get you a microphone. And if you're still thinking, or if not, would invite questions from anyone else in the room. We have a question in the middle, I think.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Gutman. I work with the Enterprise Service, IPS. The question is what is your position about the financing discussion, and what are your expectations for the final day, for Friday, regarding this topic?
Thank you for the question. I think this is a critical issue for civil society and for people on the planet. I mean, there's a lot of rumors that there will be a bad decision, and there's a lot of pressure to make a decision here because the impending coming of Trump and the possible retreat of the US from the convention or the Paris Agreement. But I think if you take your head out of this process and then you put the shoes of people in communities, we don't deserve a bad deal. I mean, what we need is a finance scheme that respects realities, the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, the historical responsibilities of developed countries, and what is actually needed to protect our ecosystems and our human rights. We do not deserve nothing less. We do not deserve what is politically feasible for politicians here, but what they are obliged to do. We hope delegations here remember that they have to act within a legal framework that ensures human rights and that accomplish the goals of the convention. Everything else, it is just talk. They have to fulfill their duties. And how they do it is up to them, but we cannot just think that because they cannot agree, we deserve a bad deal. They have to fulfill their duties, or they have to respond for that human violations that occurs when they do not provide the resources for us to protect our lives and our planet.
Can I add those again? Yeah. And I will add that we say in Latin America and the Caribbean that solo el pueblo salva el pueblo. Only the people will save the people. So we make sure that we're in these spaces and we bring discipline, we bring rigor, we bring organization, but we need a lot of that in these spaces because the COP has been a co-opt space, bringing these false solutions in agriculture, carbon markets, climate smart agriculture, geoengineering, and it is important that we show up with that level of energy because it will require a lot of push to change also the infrastructure to make sure the demands of the people are there because we're seeing expressions of a system that is oppressing us, right? This is an economical system that exploits every form, extracts from Mother Nature as if there were no limits, and exploits every form of life that is capitalism. And that's manifest in all of these situations. So we know we need to do better in loss and damages, in adaptation, but we need also to remember that what we're here for is to address the root causes and to bring systemic change. That is what our communities are doing back home.
Just add some points about that. What we really don't want is more debt. When you talk about climate finance, right now we are thinking about around 9% about climate finance is new debt. So the Global South didn't want any more debt. All this discussion here about climate finance, then they really need to leave this idea of this mainstream agenda to change this for any kind of transformation agenda. What you really want, and we believe, is a climate just finance, that you can have other way to build this process and to not give any more problem to the countries that already been impacted for the climate change at the same time is not responsible for that.
América Latina.
Presente.
Presente. No to fail solutions. Keep fossil fuels on the ground.
Keep fossil fuels in the ground.
Peoples have the solutions. Sovereignty and power.
Sovereignty and power.
Globalicemos la lucha.
Globalicemos la esperanza.
Globalicemos la esperanza. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Our speakers will be available for interviews just outside the doors.